Hi friends, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. If you're new to my channel, welcome. On this channel we learn alcohol, ink, and watercolor together, and occasionally I'll throw in a crafty art DIY project. So I hope that you enjoy this video and that you consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming tutorials. So now let's dive into it. Hi friends, in today's tutorial I am going to be painting this little whimsical beach scene. I created this very large thumbnail this morning and now I'm going to trace it onto some watercolor paper. So what I have here is just it's graphite, and I'm going to use this to scribble on the back. If you have a light box, you can use that. And I do have one, but I wanted to demonstrate for those of you who don't have one how you can easily trace an image onto your watercolor paper. I'm going to hold it up to the light, make sure I got everything. I did almost. And for today's painting, I'm going to be using this watercolor paper, Academy watercolor paper. It's by Bao Hung. It is 7 by 4.9 inches, 100% cotton, and it is 300 GSM, I think. All right, I'm going to cut this out so that it doesn't move around, because I've learned the hard way that cutting out the image to fit the paper is very helpful. So when I drew this, I didn't measure out. I had no idea how big I wanted this. I just drew what came to mind. Okay. Let's see how this fits on my paper. It fits pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to use a little washi tape to hold it in place so it doesn't move around while I'm tracing it. So I'm going to place, I don't want her directly in the center. I'm going to place a little piece here and here. Let's straighten this out a little bit. Okay, here and here. All right, so now I'm going to trace this again, and I'm just going to use a pencil. Okay, I have traced my image and then I went over it with a mechanical pencil so that I get more defined lines. And now I'm going to use a kneadable eraser to lighten some of these lines a little bit. Let me just lighten them up a little bit so they don't show through the watercolor too much. And of course I'll be using my Kuretake paints because that is my obsession right now. And I did get a new set for Mother's Day from my daughter. I'll be using those, and I'm also going to use some of the metallics because I think that would look really pretty in the water. Okay, so I did add another sailboat, and I'm going to add the clouds later on. And when you're tracing, like I did by scribbling on the back, you're going to get some smudges on the paper, so make sure you eliminate those also. All right, so I have a size 8 silver black velvet brush, and I grabbed a couple of others just in case. I have a size 12, a size 4, and a size 0. So I'm going to be using these new paints that my daughter gave me. They're by Kuretake, and I think these colors would be really nice for the sand and for the skin tones. So this is what we're using today. I have my double bowl, and I have a little palette here to mix some paints. Let me grab another one, because I'll use that one for metallics. And we are ready to get started. Let me spray these down a little bit. I may be using other colors as well from other sets that I have, but we'll see how it goes. I like that cobalt blue. I want to see just how dark that is though. So let me grab a little piece of paper here and see. Oh, that's a pretty sky color, I think. All right, we're going to use that. So I'm going to turn my painting around. It just makes it easier for me to paint. And I'm going to start adding that blue. I'm not going to make it very dark. And I'm just going to carefully go around my elements here, my umbrella. And I'll drop in a little bit more pigmented color or heavier consistency, darker value, whatever you want to call it, as I go along. Just here and there. Let's move on to the water. Now the water, I'm going to take a little bit of this cobalt blue and put it in my little mixing bowl here, or dish. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of this green because it's here, and I'll mix that in there. It's a little too green. Wow, that turned quickly. This is Horizon Blue. I'm going to pick a little bit more of that cobalt blue. That might be pretty. Oh, that's pretty. Okay, I'm happy with that. That will be the ocean. So let's start putting that in. Then I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to bring this color down here, but very lightly. I want a very watered down consistency, very diluted. Okay, so by this point I was so caught up in the painting that I forgot to speak completely. That happens sometimes. I get very caught up and forget that I'm doing a video and completely forget to speak. So I'll be doing a voiceover for the rest of this video. So you can see here that I am using a small brush. I think this is perhaps a size 8 or a 6, and I'm carefully going around all the elements to paint in the ocean. And then to create the foam, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm just cleaning my brush and using a clean, damp brush to bring that color down to create the foam. And we'll work more on that in a little bit. So while you watch me paint this, I'll remind you that all the products used are listed in the description box and pinned in the comment section. And now I'm creating the color for the sand. So I used a little bit of the rose beige and then I added a little Indian red. That was too much. So then I added more rose beige and that created the perfect color for the sand. And of course, if you don't have the Kuretake paints, you can just use regular watercolor. You can use acrylics. You can use paint markers. You can use whatever you have on hand to create these little whimsical paintings. You don't have to have these paints. Also, consider joining our Facebook group, Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials, where you can post your versions of the paintings and techniques learned on this channel. Also, stick around till the end of the video. I'm going to provide you with an outline of this painting so that you can pause the video and take a screenshot. Then you can print out the image and you can follow along with the painting or paint your own version of this particular painting. All right, now that the sand is covered, painted, I'm going to mix a couple of colors. I use the natural beige and that pink color to create the skin tone. And I wanted to make sure that there was contrast between the sand and the skin. And I think this color combination worked out really well. And I switched to a smaller brush. This may be a 6 or a 4. Now I brought out a different set of my Kuretake paints because I didn't have all the colors that I wanted in that other set. So for her hat, I'm using yellow ochre, and again using my smallest brush. And then to paint in her bathing suit, I used Rose Madder Deep. And that's a really pretty pinkish red color. And the fun will start soon because once I'm finished painting all of this, I'm going to outline and then use metallic paints, the Kuretake metallic paints, to embellish this painting and add a little shimmer to it. And I absolutely love the way it turned out. It doesn't show very well in the picture that I'm going to post at the end of the video, but you might be able to see a little bit of the effect. And of course, whatever metallic paints you have, you can use as well. Now for her hair, I used a mixture of the yellow ochre and the raw umber deep. I didn't want it to be too dark. Next, I'll be painting her little flip-flops, and for that, I used the color Malachite, which is one of my favorite colors on this particular palette. I also added a little stripe to each one of the sailboats. How pretty is that color? Moving on to the purse. For the purse, I used lemon yellow. And then for the strap, I used just a dark blue. And you'll see that painted in a moment, but I don't think I mentioned it. And now for the umbrella, I used a combination of colors. Of course, use whatever colors you like. I used lemon yellow, sap green, turquoise blue, rose madder, and the lighter version of the yellow that's on the palette, but I don't recall the name. I'm still not used to all of these colors. I think I now have 4 palettes of the Kuretake paints, and I'm not familiar with all the names yet. For the umbrella stand, I used the color Raw Umber. So you may have noticed that recently I'm doing a lot of these whimsical paintings. They bring me such joy. They're just so much fun to paint. They're very easy and very quick. You don't have to be able to paint well or even draw well. And moving forward, I am going to try and provide you with an outline of each of these paintings at the end of the video. So stay tuned for that. Now here I'm using the color Ultramarine Blue, and I'm using my smallest brush to create the stripes in the towel. And I'm making them wavy simply by applying pressure to the brush and then releasing some of that pressure, and it gives you those nice wavy little lines. Now for the clouds, I'm using the color white, and I'm using my smallest brush, and you can see that all I'm doing is just moving the brush around in circular motions to create the clouds. Then I rinse the brush off and I use a clean damp brush and kind of soften the bottom a little bit, but not too much. I'm also using that white to create the sea foam on the shore, and this worked really, really well. I thought I might have to get my Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white, but this white worked beautifully. And I'm just scribbling along the shoreline there. Now this is where the fun starts. I'm using a Posca pen with a 0.7 nib to outline all the elements. And after starting to use this particular pen, I wish that I had used a marker, maybe a micron marker with a smaller nib. But it turned out well, but I think a smaller nib would have been even nicer. When you're doing a small painting, I think a smaller nib is necessary. For the larger paintings, this size is perfect. But you can see I've outlined all the elements, and now I'm using an acrylic paint pen in the color turquoise to add some stripes to her purse. And I also added the straps to her little flip-flops using the black Posca pen. Now here I'm using a white gel pen to add some flowers to her bathing suit, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And of course you can create whatever design or pattern you like on the suit. The flowers were just easy. Later I used an orange acrylic paint pen to add some dots to the centers of those flowers. And now you see here I have the metallic palette out, and I'm using a dry brush method where I don't have a lot of water on the brush and just some paint. I'm using the side of the brush to go along the sand and add a little shimmer. And here I'm using the white color metallic to add a little shimmer to the foam on the beach. And then for the waves, I used a combination of blue and green. And you can see I'm adding pressure. I'm creating the same wavy lines that I did on the towel, but in the ocean. And look how pretty that looks. So simple, but it adds such a nice element to your painting. Now I'm using the opal white color, and I'm adding a little shimmer to the top of the clouds as well. And for her skin, I used a pale gold that is on this palette just to make it look like she had a little sunburn. And then I also added a little bit of the copper metallic to her hair. And towards the end, to add a little texture to the sand, I used the black Posca pen and a little white paint to add a few dots here and there, to add a little texture to the sand and make it a little bit more interesting. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the outline and that you give this painting a try. This was a lot of fun. It's easy to do. It goes by really quick. And as always, let me know if you have any questions. You can always leave them in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.